Hello, I'm NeoGets, and welcome back to Space Engineers. Now, I've been messing around with a couple of things since the last video of the monorail experiments up on that platform. So, I was working on the next monorail when I had a couple of ideas. This one is ridiculous and completely over-engineered in a way, or will be once it's done. But is just an experiment as to whether or not this idea actually functions. Now, have you got stuck, or are you still moving? I'm trying to get it to just run around this track without actually any assistance or anything. The platform can rotate independently, and so it's got the gyroscope which will hopefully hold the platform in one position regardless of what the base does. The base being on that wheel in order to actually be able to do its things. And looks like, oh, I know what this issue is, why it's come off the track. I've forgotten a very key part of artificial mass doing its job, which is the gravity generator that actually tells it to exist. So let's drag that down, chuck this down here, and pray we don't then just break the whole thing. No, excellent. Okay, so slight mistake there. Needed one of those. Well, at least now it's working again. The thruster assembly on the top here is purely for the sake of moving it during the testing and picking it up again once it runs off the end, because I haven't made the track. This is taking forever to build. But this was just to see if it would actually navigate this corner on its own. The reason why I used a wheel was so that it would be able to just hopefully rotate around without any major issues, because if it gets caught on the edge, the wheel should just spin. But then the top base, fingers crossed, the gyroscope will keep that still. And I'm hoping once it gets here to quickly jump in the cockpit and rescue it. But this was actually, yeah, just, I was messing around working on the monorail when I thought, you know what, I kind of want to see a monorail-y thing that looks like a proper system, like with a real world application. And you often see things that look like this with the rollers and everything, and so I decided to start making this. It's completely pointless for the monorail. The monorail wants to be actually much more useful in terms of how the game's built, but this one is just what I was going for here. And then if this does work, I would hopefully have a couple of these actually going around the track at once, because this whole thing I'm starting to try and build a sort of area containing various rides and things. I'm hoping to have a bumper cart system in the middle, which may or may not work. The idea will be basically I'm going to build several identical cars that have a ring of heavy armor blocks around them so that you can bump into each other without too much damage to the main vehicle, and see how that goes really. So I will fill in the middle of this later. Luckily there's an option here, if I show you, that changes how you're building. So if I click plane and then go back and just, I don't know, let's get down one of those again. If I click and drag, you actually build an entire plane of blocks, which is how I've built this middle area so far. I just didn't bother to actually fill it in yet, but let's actually quickly fill some of that in while it's attempting to navigate that corner, because that is going to take it a little while, and I'm not too bothered about watching how it navigates the corner. I'm just bothered about whether or not it manages it. So it's going to have a bit of a wobble because of the gap where the wheels can't actually fit, but I'm hoping that it makes it round regardless. So fingers crossed for that. Oh no, it didn't like that. I accidentally clicked onto the other plane, obviously. But let's drag this one over. So there we go. Much simpler for building than actually attempting to deal with things. Now this looks like we are actually having a bit of a failure here. It's fallen off that roller and now can't actually move. So definitely an issue there. I will probably just pick it up in a moment and do something about that gap. Don't know what at the moment, but something just to help it coast over. Maybe even just a couple of blocks for it to grind along. I will see, but let's quickly return this back to the other end of the system. Oh, 1 second. You can't lift it with the artificial mass on. I have accidentally ripped apart my vessels several times with that. So let's get the inertial dampeners back on and then continue pulling this backwards. I don't know if it can actually move with the inertial dampeners active, but given that the design is not supposed to have the inertial dampeners, that's something that I'm not really considering. And now for the much more entertaining part of this video, which was something that I came up with when playing with the rotors. I decided to make a sort of spinning teacup ride. So this is technically, according to the game, a hell of a lot of different ships, because every time you attach a motor you end up with a different ship. So none of these pods that you sit in for the ride are actually capable of controlling their own speed. You have to jump down one layer to adjust the speed. So I've got them all set to different speeds. You can see there the yellow one is a very gentle spin on its gently spinning platform, and one of the platforms is spinning a different way to the others as well. That was very deliberate, and then I just added some lighting for pretty effect, although it only really shows up in the shadow over here, but it's still quite nice. So if we drop down, you'll see there's the control panel just there and the central rotor. Then you needed a control panel for this one for these rotors, and control panels for the top rotors. And then you just jump in and it's great fun. If I can get into the green one, this one's the fastest one. There we go. And you spin around, approaching the walls and drifting away from the walls, but you can't really get the sense of the fact that the platform you're on is spinning at this speed. So let's jump out of that one. Oop, get sent flying by it. And try jumping into one of the others and get into this view. This one works a bit more like the view of a conventional teacup ride. You're much more aware of how close you're getting to those walls before you're dragged away by the spinning of the platform. And I really like this. It was just a random idea I had that's been good fun. I really enjoyed just sitting in these little cockpits and spinning around at the different speeds. Oops, sorry, wrong button. And so decided just to make it. Why am I flying off? Inertial dampers are off, that's why. So yeah, just a couple of things that I'm working on. I'm planning on adding several more rides around the perimeter of this thing, which is why I'm building this thing as well. It's the sort of system that takes you between the different rides as and when I build them. But got to come up with systems that work for each one. This one was easy. Other rides are a lot harder. I'd love to make a sort of roller coaster that moves you itself, but I'm not sure how. This sort of track design that's incredibly frustrating and inefficient actually would work quite well for a sort of log flume design, as long as it was a wheeled vehicle, but I don't think would quite get the thrill seeking that you're looking for with a roller coaster design. So really going to have to work on that one. Not sure what to do there. And then there's also a thing I want to try with gravity rings. You make a sort of ring of gravity generators, and as the character approaches them you get hurtled across a great distance by it, which is something I really want to play with. So I hope that you've enjoyed just this little look at what I've been up to in creative. I've not been on this world much since the last video, so there's not actually been that much progress, but just some interesting things that I'm working on that are entertaining to do, really. So I will see you soon, hopefully in the survival let's play. I'm planning on starting that up this afternoon, so long as I'm not too ill when I get back from doing my weekly shop. So see you later, bye.